My name's Brian Gawthrop, and my unexpected hobby is rucking.
Welcome to Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors, the podcast where we interview fellow financial advisors about their pursuits and pastimes beyond their professional persona, some of which may be surprising to their colleagues and clients. We're interested in what makes them tick and how their unexpected hobbies might or might not relate to their everyday lives. Here's our discussion with this week's guest. Hey, Brian. Thanks for joining us on the Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors podcast. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
We are fine as frog hair, as my dad would say. Tell the world, what is your unexpected hobby?
My unexpected hobby is rucking. I want to make sure I articulate it really well. Rucking, and it involves carrying a weighted backpack and walking. That's it.
That sounds so simple.
It
all
is.
there
I
is
mean,
to it. Just a weighted backpack and
if you think
walking.
about junior high or high school, or even kids these days, if they don't have lockers, you see them hunched over, lugging a heavy backpack, but I actually do it for fun and go miles and miles. And it's a great exercise, and it's great from a social standpoint too.
As was junior high for all of us.
Yeah.
I frequently look back on junior high. How can I relive those days? So how did you get into this in the first place?
I'm part of a local, well, it's actually an international men's group called F3. And it has a hook of fitness. So it stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. And it is local, but it's also international. So you can go to any major city and you'll have it there. And the hook is the workout. They have workouts in the early morning and some places in the afternoon. And most of the workouts are boot camp oriented because it's free, it's peer led, it's always outdoors. You know, it's kind of like being in third grade recess with a bunch of adult males. It's men only. It's great. And they several of them told me about rucking, and they had an event coming up where they did an overnight rucking challenge. And the funny thing about this F3 group is people start it for the workout, but it's really a leadership group. You learn leadership skills. And so this overnight rucking event, it is physically stressful, it is mentally stressful, but it is also a leadership event because they rotate who's leading the group and what they're doing. And it's often led by former special forces type guys. So they know what they're doing. They keep everybody safe. And you have a bunch of, 40, 50-year-old guys slogging through, jumping in a lake at a local park, doing water burpees and everything with your weighted backpack on. So that's how I got exposed to it at first. You don't have to do all of that crazy stuff though. You don't have to do the events. You can just put on a backpack and put some weight in it and just walk. And it's a great workout.
How long were they inviting you to participate before you finally took the plunge?
I'm the type of person, I like picking up and carrying heavy things. I know it's probably not typical, but it's the opposite of a runner's build, right? So I hate running. And the great thing about rucking that appeals to me is that you can get your heart rate up if you ruck at a fast pace. Envision walking the dog as fast as you can, but you have weight on your back, so it magnifies it, and you can get your heart rate up, but it's not as hard on your joints. When you're running, it multiplies your body weight onto your joints by, I think, 7 to 12 times, versus when you're walking, the biometrics, it's only 3 to 4 times. So even if you're carrying 50 pounds, it's not anywhere near as bad for your joints as running. So you can ruck quickly, get your heart rate up. And the best part about it is you can bring a friend or 2 or 10, right? And so if you bring friends, With running, it's kind of like dating. When you're jogging with somebody, you don't know if they're faster or slower. You show up, if you're faster, do you slow down for them? Then you don't get as much workout, and then they feel bad, and it's this shame thing. It's very similar to dating. With rucking, if you're with somebody and they're slower than you put in more weight. So it's great because you can level the playing field. I can walk my third grader to school, and his little tiny legs don't go that fast, but I'll throw on 50-pound ruck and maybe a 60-pound sandbag. And so I walk him the mile to school, and by the time I get home, I'm pouring sweat. And it was just walking the kids to school. And I burned, 400 to 600 calories in a couple miles.
That's a lot of weight.
Well, I don't
That's a lot
recommend
of
people
weight.
starting that way. I mean, normally you want to just start with, say, 20 pounds or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is your kid at school known as the kid with the sweaty daddy?
He might be. Might be. I mean, that's a new line for the bullies. Hey, kid, you're the...
You with the sweaty dad. Get over
Yeah.
here.
No, but I've actually gotten a lot of dads to join me because they've been dropping off their kids. They've seen me, and they're like, they'll see me at some school event, and we'll get to talking because you can only talk about weather and work for so long. And it'll come up, and I'll invite them to come rock with me. And it's great because, if you've ever taken a long walk with somebody, it's the same thing. You get to catch up. You're away from the office. You're away from all the distractions. You're out in nature. And unlike going to get beers, which I think is great also, you're doing something healthy, right? So
Yeah. Are there weather boundaries? I mean, you talk about being drenched in sweat. Is there I'm assuming it's individual, but is there a heat and humidity point that you just say, you know what, it's a 30-pound a day rather than a 50-pound day?
no, actually. It kind of plays into that mindset of what is hard makes you tougher. And in fact, I have a ruck back here that has a patch on it that says "Embrace the suck." And so I think it hardens your mental capacity, right? If it's raining outside, if it's snowing, if it's whatever, if it's dark. I live near Seattle, in Kirkland, Washington. You don't want to go out there. Nobody wants to go outside. But that's where the social element plays in. If you can get a buddy or two to commit to rucking with you, or even if they just walk without a ruck, then they're waiting on you. And I tend to do early morning things because F3 does a lot of early morning things. So like this morning, I met with somebody at 5:30 this morning and rucked 4 miles up 800 elevation and burned 850 calories per my watch anyway, carrying 30 pounds. And we had a chat the whole time. So we had, an hour and 20 minutes or so because we were doing hills, so it was slower. Really steep hill. We got to chat, and I got to catch up and learn more about him, and the same for him. So
what's the scoreboard? Is the scoreboard weight? Is the scoreboard steps? Is the scoreboard calories burned? Like
How friendships, man? How many friends have you made?
Is it friendships?
it's you against you. I mean, what's the scoreboard in running? I mean, some people, it's the pace. Some people, it's the distance. Some people, it's how many marathons they've done. Some people, have they done a 50-miler and gotten a belt buckle? Have you done a Spartan? Have you done whatever, a triathlon? But some just do it for the love of doing it, and they don't care the pace. And I think it's a similar thing with rucking. You mentioned weather. For my 45th birthday a couple years ago, I set a goal of rucking 45 miles with 45 pounds for my 45th birthday, which to any guy makes sense. It's man logic. So there's a big lake. I can actually look out my window and see it. It's called Lake Washington, right beside Seattle. And wouldn't you know it, when I was playing with the map, finding a route, I found a 45-mile route around Lake Washington, which makes it great, So I did that on my 45th birthday, and it had snowed. It dumped in the area a couple days ago before that. My birthday happens to be January 2nd. So a week after Christmas,
White
it's
Christmas.
the day that
Washington
everybody
State.
hates because it's usually when everyone starts back to work. And so I started at midnight with a couple friends. Um, and it was so icy. The snow had melted, thawed, melted, thawed. So I had about probably 2 inches of ice. My friend got out of his car and did a cartoon, legs everywhere. I could hear the sound effects in my head when I watched him. It looked like a Scooby Doo episode. And the whole time I had to wear little micro spikes on my feet for the 14 hours I did it. The 45 miles. So, the condition, it makes a better story. The conditions, it sucks at the time, but it makes a great story afterwards. And we're waterproof, right? I mean, our skin, we can jump in the water. We're not going to die if we get wet. So, and the great thing about carrying a backpack with weight is you can carry other things too, like an extra layer or food or water.
You said there's a lot of guys that are, retired military special forces, in that group. Do you have a military background? Is that what kind of drew you to it? Is that what draws other people? Are a lot of military guys that do this?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. A lot of former military guys actually don't want to ruck because they rucked when they were in the military. I'm not former military, but my understanding is the gear when you're in the military is not the best because government contracts, they have standards and they buy it the cheapest they can. They ruck for, 25, 30 miles in basic training. And it's a great way to train a group of people. But when you don't have, you're wearing cotton shirts and you're sweating like crazy, it doesn't really feel that pleasant, I would think. So, I'm a civilian doing it. And most of the guys I do it with haven't been in the military, but some have. And they tell me it's totally different because if you have different gear that works really well and you wear wicking things and, you have modern sneakers, you can really enjoy it versus dreading it.
Speaking of hardware, you sold it initially as, hey, you walk with a backpack, but it sounds like, well, maybe you've got proper clothing that is special purpose, and I see a array of rucks behind you, and while maybe you
Yeah,
need
here you go.
specialized
Yeah.
footwear for hiking in black ice, you could get some scope creep when it comes to the hardware. Yeah.
Yeah, but as a financial planner, one of the things that appealed to me, unlike other sports, is when you buy a ruck, there's a major company called Gawthrop that sells really high quality rucks. There are others, but that's the biggest one. It was started by former Special Forces Green Beret guy. They don't go down in value. I can buy a ruck for anywhere between 200 and 350, depending on the features, which is a really expensive backpack. But they don't break. They have lifetime warranties. And you can resell it on a secondary market for the same or more than you bought it for, even though you used it for thousands of miles and got it all sweaty and you washed it. What else can you do with your money and get those kind of financial numbers? So I think that was really appealing for me. And so I built up, whenever I would see secondhand rucks pop up, as I got more into it, I would buy one here, one there. And it's great because when I have my friends ruck with me, they'll throw out the excuse that they don't have one. And I said, well, I've got you covered, right?
Problem
So
solved.
I even have a little...
Let him who has two share with him who has
Yeah.
none.
Yeah. So, and I'll even let them borrow it if they want. In fact, all three of my boys, which are going into 3rd grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade, have rucks for their backpack. So to be clear, a ruck can be a backpack, but not all backpacks are good rucks, because a ruck is built very, very, very sturdy to carry weight,
Sure.
right? And so for school, it works out perfectly, and I don't have to buy a new backpack every year or two when a regular backpack falls apart, and I can resell it for the same or more when they're done.
My daughter's a sophomore down at the local state school downtown, and she was for a year using my wife's backpack from when she was a college student, so like an heirloom piece, and it didn't take too long before it started to
Yeah,
show more wear and
yeah,
tear. Like, Bree, you need to replace that thing because you can't break your mother's
yeah,
backpack. That's
yeah.
not
You
going to
should.
work. Should have gotten a ruck, I guess, 25
That's
years
right.
ago,
I
and it'd
mean,
still
they
be
last
good.
a lifetime. You send them in if they do start to break or fray or a zipper or things happen, and they'll fix it for free.
So when you talk about the weights, are there custom designed weights for a backpack, or are we talking like just plates from a barbell or from like a bench press set? You just grab a 20-pounder and throw it in a backpack.
Well, if you're getting
Gallon of milk.
started, you should start with whatever you have, right? If you have a JanSport in the closet you haven't worn since high school, dig it out. If you have an old laptop backpack, dig it out. Dumbbell, I wouldn't really recommend because you want the weight to be high and in the center, and dumbbells tend to go down and move around. So if the dumbbell is the only thing that you have, maybe put it in a couple pillows to get it up higher and keep it from moving around. You can take something as simple as bricks and wrap it up in duct tape and bubble wrap. If you don't want the inside of your backpack torn up. If you don't care, then don't even do that. But, a brick is about 5 pounds or so, or a couple pounds each. And just wrap them up. And that's pretty simple. So you can just get started. I've actually had clients who are in their 80s tell me, of course, I share that I ruck with them. They tell me, my doctor told me the other day when I went to see him that I should get a few cans of soup and put it in a backpack and walk around because my bone density, and it would help that. And it helps with balance. So, I mean, you can ruck as long as you can walk, you can ruck.
Speaking of clients, that's one of the things we're curious about. Is this the sort of activity that you've been able to invite colleagues or friends or even clients to do with you and get to know them better? Or is that a division that has not yet been breached?
No, I've gotten a few clients rucking. In fact, when I started my firm, I considered calling it something to the effect of the rucking advisor. But then I thought, okay, well, what if I fumble pronouncing it, or people don't know what rucking is, and I didn't want to go down that path. So I called my firm Five Cedars. I have 5 big Western red cedars in my backyard, so it's not that hard. But I also thought about a lot of financial advisors will have complimentary consultations at first just to get to know you a little bit. I thought, well, that would be really neat if I could just say, let's go for a ruck. But then someone said, well, not everybody that might be looking at your website are, men that are fine with rucking with another man through the woods, and so I kind of veered away from that. But who knows? In the future, I might pick it back up. I'm not adverse to it. Because
Sure,
it's a
sure.
great way to get to know someone. Just if you've taken an hour-long walk with somebody, which a lot of people don't these days, you get to know somebody pretty well.
Going the other direction, as you've gotten to know these people fairly well, it'd be pretty hard to hide your profession for very long. As you've developed these relationships with people and they've gotten to know you, has there been anybody that's, hey, I've been looking for somebody to talk to about my financial
Yeah,
life? Has that led to professional relationships?
yeah, yeah. And the great part about that is I don't have to push it. It's a natural human thing to say, "Oh, what do you do? What do you do?" And I let them know. And if they're more interested, they ask me more about it. And often they'll ask me things, and I'll give off the cuff insights. I am careful not to give advice, given that I'm, a certified financial planner, and that's a no-no unless you have a formal client. But, anytime you're in any profession, you're going to give some kind of insights. And if they want to explore it more, then they'll tell me. And that's happened many times where they've then scheduled an appointment and, they're clients. So they've gotten to know me before and then decided to work with me professionally.
Have there been lessons or principles that you've learned from the activity that have been transferable over to your work life?
Um, just the mentality of rucking in any weather, no matter what, I think can transfer to any profession or life in general, right? Because how many times do we lay in bed and it's the weekend and we don't want to get up? We sleep in a little longer, but we don't really feel better afterwards. Whereas, this morning I was up at 4:30. I met somebody at 5:30. We rucked for 4 miles, carrying 30 to 50 pounds. Got to talk. How often do you get to meet with your friends? As you become an adult and you have kids and a family and a job, how much time do you get to really carve out with friends? So we got to talk, and came home, and that was all before 8 a.m. Right? So I walk in, the kids are just getting up, my wife's getting up, and I'm in a great mood because I've already got my workout in. I've already spent time with my friends, and it's a beautiful day outside, and my blood's pumping. So the key is to get to bed early. To get to bed early enough to get up that early. Otherwise, you end up burning the wick at both ends. But um, I think that's a great exercise to do because, you don't have to go to a pool. You really don't have to have specialized equipment. You can just, any backpack and put a sack of flour or sugar in it if you want, just to get started. And the real thing is just walking. And so if you want to get up your cardio and increase your heart rate, walk faster. Don't run with weight, but walk faster. If you want to connect with a friend, you do it with them. Ideally, that friend also has the same goals or similar goals, and they want to ruck fast. And if they're not as fast as you, you just put in more weight. So
you're up at 43, 44 degrees latitude. If you're up and out at 5:30, there's a chance that it's bright this time of year, but it won't be long before it's dark when you're getting home at 9 in the morning.
right. Oh
Is
yeah,
that
yeah.
what are you for illumination? A
Oh
headlamp kind
yeah.
of thing, or
Headlamps, and I'll often clip a light on the back of my ruck as well. Similar to a bicycle light that they put that flashes. It depends on where I'm rucking. So if I'm rucking through a forest, there's a state park near my house. If I'm rucking through there, a headlamp's fine. But if I'm doing more of an urban ruck, then I want to have lights because people aren't expecting you to be walking around when they're rushing to work. And so it's really important to be aware of your surroundings.
you mentioned the 45 miles with 45 pounds on your 45th birthday, and that sounded like a heck of a memorable day. Are there other special memories that make the hobby special to you that you like to share with people that you'll take with you for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, training for that event was actually a great memory. I would do my long rucks every Sunday, and I have, friends found out that I was doing it, and they would go train with me. And they might not be able to go the whole way, because I started at 10 miles, and I built next week up to 15, then 20. And eventually, my heaviest, longest training ruck was 70 pounds for 23 miles. Well, friends can't just jump in and do that with you. So they would carry 20 or 30 themselves, and they did a half or a quarter or whatever, and Uber back to their car. And so that was probably the best experience because even the 45-mile event that I did, there was maybe out of 14 hours, 1 or 2 hours total that I was alone.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
carried a beacon with me, an app called Strava, where you can track workouts. I carried a beacon and I posted the link in the F3 group and said, "Hey, if you want to come join me, this is where you find me." And so I had guys coming at 3 in the morning finding me, and 6 in the morning, and just, they do 5 or 10 miles and then call it quits. And it was great because what other thing can you think of at 45 um, that is better than spending 14 uninterrupted hours with your best friends and exercising, feeling great about it? So just the
Sure.
training for that was great. I've done other events that are really great. One was on a mountaintop in Washington. I live in Washington State, of course. We have lots of mountains, a lot of overnight events I've done. But even just the boring rucking with a friend or two, you can get into some deep conversations. I mean, think about how often you really get to talk with your close friends for an hour, uninterrupted, and then be able to do it 3 to 5, 6 times a week.
That often.
Yeah, sometimes more, sometimes less. It depends if I can get to bed early enough, or if people are available. But I like to do at least 3 times, maybe 4 times a week. Do it,
Okay.
but sometimes it's more. And
You mentioned overnight events. So is that like walking through the night, or is a tent one of the things that you've got in the backpack?
no, not a tent. It is a endurance type event.
Embrace the suck.
Embrace the suck. Yeah. So they're often, the shorter ones are 6 hours, but there's 12 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours. Some are even 36 hours long. I haven't done any of those, but just staying awake that long is a challenge. But then carrying it usually ends up being 45-pound ruck, because it's a 30-pound requirement, just dead weight plus anything you're going to eat or drink or whatever. Just carrying that alone is a challenge, but then they often will have sandbags or other things that will make it more of a group event. So maybe one event we carried a log, literally think of a telephone pole. So they had 3 of them, and 10 guys, 8 or 10 guys line up on the pole with your ruck still on, and you're shouldering this telephone pole, and it's 3 a.m. and you're navigating through a forest, or in that case, it had rained a few hours before, so it was a very, very muddy hill that we were carrying it up. And it sounds terrible, which it was at the time, but it's a memory that I won't forget, and those guys won't forget. And I think men often bond with other men when they do hard things together. If you think back of all your best
Adversity.
friends,
Yeah.
you went through something with them, whether it's junior high or you're at a hard job or you did something hard with them, and that's usually how you bond. And so doing rucking will help accelerate that.
You mentioned how it's compared to other activities, low impact on the joints. Is there a stereotypical characteristic injury, blisters or back pain, shoulders,
Yeah, I
vehicle
mean,
pedestrian incidents? What happens to people?
it's embrace the suck on purpose, right? So I think when people try to ramp up too quickly, similar to running, if you said, if you're not a runner and New Year's rolls around, I'm going to start running, and then you go run a 5K, it's not going to be a good situation. And so with rucking, I think people will either go too far or ramp up the weight too fast, too quickly, or both. And then also, in addition, not wear the right things. So cotton is terrible because it doesn't wick away moisture, especially a shirt, because you're carrying the ruck, and it rubs a little bit, but not much. But think of it, it's basically a microwave on your back if you have cotton, because the water doesn't go anywhere and it rubs against your skin. So you want to have
Yeah.
wicking type materials. And same with socks. You don't want to wear cotton socks because the blisters. And a big thing that you learn the more distance you get is you want to have a foot care kit in your ruck, because if you start to feel a hot spot, you don't want to just plow through it.
Fix
It's not going to
itself.
fix
Yeah.
itself. And if you just plow through it, then you're hurting your next ruck, because you'll have a big blister or even worse. And that's going to have a negative impact. But if you stop and you deal with it and, put moleskin on it or some kind of foot tape, and then maybe change socks, because you can have an extra pair of socks in your ruck, and then go along, right? So I think that's the biggest thing, is just to kind of continuously monitor your body and deal with things as they come.
You've been doing this a few years now, and now that you've gotten into some of the different varieties of it and some real experience with it, what words of wisdom or words of warning would you give to the baby rucker that you used to be?
Um, Words of wisdom, I would say just do it. Don't say. I mean, it's similar to any type of exercise. I think having the right gear keeps, or joining a gym keeps a lot of people from doing things. And the beauty of rucking is, if you can go outside and walk, you can ruck. Just throw on any backpack. You don't have to get the couple $100 ruck. You don't have to get specialized gear. Just throw on any backpack and walk as fast as you can for a couple miles. Put 20 pounds in, walk 2 miles as fast as you can, and see how it goes. And I think that's the great part about it. It doesn't matter if it's raining or snowing. If it's slick, be careful. You want to put on those little micro spikes, or be careful if it's slick, because a fall can be worse when you're carrying weight. But other than that, bring plenty of water.
You mentioned Strava and people tracking you. I suppose that's as much a safety feature as it is a social feature. That if you do find a tumble or get yourself in a situation, there are people who they know where you are, even if you're in the wilderness.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really do it in the wilderness too much.
State
Yeah, I
park,
mean,
say.
I use Strava. I have groups that I'm members of that, we just kind of cheer each other on and keep track of statistics if you care about it. But you don't have to wear anything. You don't have to track it if you want. I mean, if you don't have a watch or a gadget to track the workout, it doesn't matter. You can just go. And from a safety standpoint, remember, you're carrying a 20 to 30 pound backpack. So not that is good in a close situation, but to swing that around is no joke. So I often think that when I'm crossing a street and maybe a car doesn't see me right away, I have this fantasy of taking off my ruck and throwing 50 pounds onto their hood or something. Of course, it's just a silly fantasy, but so if you're concerned with safety, sure, you can have a beacon. I did it for that event, or when I was doing more than 10 to 15 or 20 miles at a time, just people wanted to track me. But modern phones today, you can have friends and family track you. You can even have, if you have a smartwatch, it will even track if you fall down and call emergency.
Where would you suggest that people go if they wanted to learn more about it without actually signing up for a group? Is there YouTube channels, or how do people learn more about it without having to lace up your
Yeah,
shoes?
there's, it's popping up more and more. In fact, on my drive to my office, just a mile from my house, I saw two people walking, two different couples walking, husband, wife, and one of them had backpacks. And I could tell, whenever I see somebody walking with a backpack, my kids joke about that I kind of do a second take, and I'm not looking at anything other than their backpack to see if there's weight in it. But it seems to be more and more popular. There's YouTube channels on rucking. GoRuck has a lot of great resources. Another resource that I really like, it's called Heavy Drop Training. It's out of Cleveland. If you want to do not just rucking, but you can use it as a little gym as well, because a lot of the rucks have handles on the side, and you can just use it as a little gym. And they have a lot of great programs. There's Facebook groups. I think there's a rucking Facebook group. There's a bunch of rucking Facebook groups. Some of them are more, how would I put it?
It's Facebook.
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
variety.
Some are more retired military type, a little more raw. But there is one called, I think it's just called Rucking, and men, women, uh, of all ages, sizes, 400-pound people down to 18-year-olds or
Kids.
12-year-olds. Younger people rucking, and it's really more for motivation. So somebody will post, "Oh, I did my first ruck and it was 15 pounds and 2 miles, and I feel great," and they'll get accolades. And somebody else says, "Oh, well, I did a 12-mile ruck with 50 pounds and I did it under 3 hours, and that's a huge deal," and you'll get accolade. So it's like any social media. But the more you get into it, there's rucking groups that you can look into, and so you'll have a lot of like-minded people, probably similar to cycling or running, and but even more
Is it
social.
something that if you travel, like you travel a lot for
Yeah.
work, and you go, you find yourself in a new area, like you find a new group to work,
Yeah.
kind of to work out with. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
a workout. Or additionally, like, can you coordinate or organize a rucking event at a conference, like the next financial planning conference? Like, get a bunch of people together.
Yeah,
and
that would be
ruck.
kind of cool. The only trick is, so with my ruck, I have them back here. I have one right here. So what I use are iron plates that kind of fit in the ruck. They're specialized. You don't have to use this, but that's what I use. And TSA doesn't like that. So what I do when I travel is you can either get big bladders that you can fill up with water and have weight.
Yeah.
So it's empty when you travel, and you just fill them up when you get there and dump them out when you're done. Or I also have a specialized bag from GoRuck called a brick bag, which was named because before they came out with these specialized iron plates, all they did was put bricks in a bag, and that was it. I mean, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's just weight. I mean, you can carry a cinder block if you want on your shoulder and walk. So don't let that be your excuse.
You talked about being out with somebody that was going at a different pace than you. And hey, if you're going faster than somebody,
Yeah.
you just put more weight in. I thought, well, you just like find rocks on the side of the path and.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
so the first time you meet them, it might be a little different, but then you'll know how fast they ruck, and the next time. The beauty is they don't know
Plan
how much is in
accordingly.
your ruck. So, you could be loaded down with 70 pounds, or you could have 10 pounds. It doesn't matter. They don't know unless you tell them.
Unless you advertise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have probably a silly question. Like, is there resting? Like, or like jogging? Yeah, you can rest anytime, but kind of like the idea of jogging is like you go out and you jog and you stop
Go.
when you hit whatever you're trying to hit. Is that the same deal with rucking? You go and you just keep going until you're done. Or
It's
stop?
taking a walk. So if you have to stop and rest when you take a long walk, then you can stop and rest. It's really you against you, right? There are rucking races where it would be like 20 to 50 miles, and it's they have a course where you have to take a picture of something as a checkpoint, right? So you can take any route you want, but you have to get to certain checkpoints in the area that adds up to at least, let's say, 50 miles or 25 miles. And that's timed, right? So you're trying to get as fast as possible, and you might have a team to get over the finish line with you. But if it's just you training, or you and some friends, you do it. If your goal is to raise your cardio, then no, don't stop. Just keep going. If you're really fancy and have a a smartwatch, you can even set your watch to alert you when you go over a certain heart rate, similar to when you're jogging. So it's really whatever it is you want to do. I think another great benefit is, in addition to building your cardio, you are building your strength as well, which runners are not doing, right? If I say runner's body, you don't think of Hercules, right? But if I say rucking and I explain what it was, you'd think of these big soldiers that are, the Rock type guy, right? Well, that's it. It can really help build upper body strength and lower body. And it's a great cross trainer if you are a runner, because you can strengthen the balancer muscles that aren't normally strengthened. And so you have a base when you do run, and you don't get injured as much.
Well, we've interviewed a lot of folks that have had hobbies that are unexpected, yes, and interesting in their own way. But this is, I'm not going to become a pilot. I'm not going to become an actor. I'm not going to get involved in chess. But as I do identify as a runner, but the last 4 years we've had a dog, I've been doing a lot more walking, a lot
Yeah.
less running. And this one's actually, I might.
I agree.
I might.
I'm with you. I'm like, why not?
You guys
Try
should
it.
do it
Like, it's
and
easy to
check
try.
back. I mean, if you're walking the dog anyway, why not just
Right.
throw
Already
on
out there
right.
5 days a
and you
week.
probably have a backpack somewhere in your where you live. It doesn't have to
I
be the
do.
fanciest. Throw in whatever you can find. You don't want it to be moving around. So, if it's a
Yeah.
dumbbell,
I'll put in all my cotton shirts.
yeah, and no, well,
that I
I mean,
can't use
for
anymore.
walking the dog for a mile or two, it doesn't really
I know.
matter, right? I think
Yeah.
we shouldn't be scared of sweat, right? So, but if you're just walking the dog, throw on a backpack with some weight and see if you feel any different.
All right, I have to ask this. Like, do people do this on a treadmill? I'm not suggesting that I do this on a treadmill, but
Yeah,
like,
my
is
wife
that, like,
treadmills. Yeah, she could.
is
You
I would
can,
imagine you
yeah,
don't
I'm
get
sure.
nearly.
I mean, I think I might have rucked on a treadmill once or twice in my life, because for me personally, the beauty is not just rucking and the exercise and the friendship, but getting outside in nature. Even if
Sure.
it's even if you're in a city setting, getting outside, I think, is so important. And I didn't really appreciate it that much until 2020 and COVID and all that, and everybody was locked down. And I was rucking every day for 2 hours. Not only was I rucking every day, but all my friends, I organized an event where every single day they could call in. I had a Zoom phone number, and it wasn't video, but you could use the dial-in conference call feature. And so I would be on my headphones rucking for 2 hours with anywhere from 3 to 12 guys.
Yeah.
And it could be from
Yeah.
all across the world too. I mean, I was in the morning, somebody else in Pittsburgh could be in, afternoon, somebody across the ocean could be in the evening. So, it it really kept me sane during COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And the treadmill thing. If you're going to be on the treadmill anyway, my wife's treadmills every day. And Aaron, I know you listen. I'm not telling you what to do, but if you're, if
Already
it's already not
social, it's
social,
already
it's already
indoor.
indoors, it's already what you're doing. But throwing on
Yeah, yeah.
an increasing amount of weight.
My wife tried rucking on
Yeah.
the treadmill because she's the same way. She'll run when it's nice out, but outside. But when it's not perfect, not perfect, but not ideal, certainly not raining, she'll do the treadmill.
Standards.
And she tried it. It wasn't so much for her, but I'm sure a lot of people do treadmill. I personally just like being outside no matter what, because if it's raining, I can put a poncho on or I can get wet. It's not a big deal.
All right. Well, this has been really, really good. If people want to learn more about you personally, you professionally, you on Strava, how do they find you and follow you?
Yeah. Well, I don't have my Strava off the top of my head, but you can find me at 5seaters.com is my business. It's the number 5 and then Cedars, CEDARS. And I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and all those, Instagram. I don't really use Instagram that much, but you can look me up on Strava as well if you want. And anybody that's interested, I'm I'm not the best, but I'm not the worst. I can send you a link to a rucking white paper that I really enjoy, because even a beginner can look at it and see what's needed, how should I start, things to look out for. And then as you get more advanced, it has more advanced stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just a blog post, I believe, from the founder of GoRuck. And, he's former special forces, and he's got some good advice there.
Yeah. Send that along and we can put that in the show notes.
Here we go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We've enjoyed this quite a bit and we've learned a lot.
As you can tell, I love talking about it. I'll talk anybody's ear off.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors is brought to you by Fiduciary CFO, forward-thinking tax and planning solutions for business owners, like RIA firms and their business owner clientele. The opinions of Brian, Joshua, and their guests are for entertainment purposes and should not be construed as legal, tax, financial, or investment advice. You should know better than to take any of this content seriously. Thanks for being a fan of the show. If you were listening and thought to yourself, hey, I know somebody they need to have on the show, you can do something about that. Go to unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate and tell us who they are and what they do that's so interesting and unexpected. If we agree, we'll send them an invitation and we'll hope they say yes. Now it's unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate.